Imagine hosting a cozy dinner party, but your neighbors are low-key creepy and your marriage is literally imploding. What starts as an innocent night quickly devolves into an absolute psychological nightmare of domestic paranoia. Trust me, by the time these unhinged guests step through the door, you will be on the edge of your seat. We open on a tense duet rehearsal where two musicians are desperately trying to get their timing synced up. Frustration boils over instantly as the piano gets slammed in pure rage when the notes fall completely out of rhythm. Cut to Joe lugging a ridiculously awkward folding bicycle into his apartment, complaining the second he walks in. His wife Angela reminds him that he bought the goofy ride specifically to fix his cooked physical posture. She pushes back on his complaining, bringing up his physician's strict orders about staying active. Joe vents that the entire portable design is trash because folding it up takes a whole engineering degree. In his mind, these tiny micro wheels require double the pedaling effort compared to a standard bicycle. Shifting gears, Joe starts looking around the apartment for his young daughter Maggie. Angela casually mentions that Maggie is staying over at her classmate Sadie's house for the night. Joe immediately gets defensive because he thinks this Sadie kid gives off total red flags. Angela reassures him that she thoroughly vetted the household beforehand to ensure zero danger. Suddenly, Joe notices an insane mountain of fancy dairy taking over their entire kitchen counter. He is utterly floored by the sheer amount of expensive ingredients sitting out in the open. Angela drops the news that she is preparing a lavish meal specifically for the couple living right above them. She insists that she gave him a clear heads-up about hosting them tonight during a previous chat. Joe snaps back that simply announcing an event is completely different from actually asking for his consent. He claims she completely tunes out his opinion anyway whenever she makes spur-of-the-moment decisions. Angela instantly flips the script, calling him out for failing to pick up the booze on his way home. Starving and frustrated, Joe resorts to grabbing a single Jared pickle straight out of the fridge. Angela throws a total fit, whining that he is going to ruin his appetite before her masterpiece is served. She aggressively orders him to tidy up his messy workspace before their guests arrive. To her, his cluttered desk is giving low-key trash vibes right before their dynamic social debut. Joe desperately tries to back out, begging her to call the neighbors and pull the plug on tonight. Angela slams that idea down hard, revealing the guests are stepping into the building in literally 10 minutes. She reminds him that getting these people over has been in the works for half a year. Plus, she insists the upstairs couple was surprisingly cool while their heavy apartment construction was raging. Angela defends the wife, hyping up her undeniable charm and main character energy. Joe strongly disagrees, rating the husband as an absolute oddball who creeps him out in shared spaces. He explains how the guy stares into his soul during quick elevator rides while asking intrusive questions. Angela mocks his social anxiety, telling him basic eye contact is just normal human interaction. Then Joe notices a brand new carpet on the floor and instantly catches onto her secret strategy. He roasts her for spending heavy cash on home decor just to flex on relative strangers. Angela desperately tries to kill the bad vibe by asking him to perform a literal emotional reset. Reluctantly, Joe agrees to step back into the hallway and re-enter like a totally content husband. He sarcastically mocks the podcast tactic, pretending that stepping through the door twice solves toxic drama. Joe walks back inside with fake enthusiasm, putting on a theater performance of a happy spouse. He plays along with maximum sarcasm, falsely praising their energetic upstairs neighbors. Within seconds, his fake smile drops as he demands once again to reschedule the party. Angela refuses to back down, insisting that canceling at the finish line would completely ruin their reputation. Joe shifts his paranoia to the giant uncurtained windows, hating how exposed their living area feels. Angela brushes off his security fears, insisting the natural sun makes the whole apartment pop. She starts laying out fancy foreign meats, trying to tailor the menu to their guests' European background. Angela gets condescendingly specific about the high-class food names she bought for the night. When Joe reaches for a slice, she guards her platter like a hawk protectively. Joe sighs, wishing he could just spark up inside and ignore the impending awkwardness altogether. Suddenly, Joe admits the real motive behind letting these guests cross their threshold. Angela gasps in terror, reminding him of their explicit pact to stay totally silent. She believes that whatever goes on in their neighbor's private space should remain strictly unmentioned. Joe explodes, reminding her that they get blasted awake every single night by chaotic bedroom noises. Angela flips it, arguing that the wife's loud expression of passion is actually deeply impressive. She tries lecturing him on how tough it is for women to reach that peak level of satisfaction. Joe gets wildly crude, debating which neighbor is responsible for which bizarre nocturnal screech. He vows to drop the pleasantries at dinner and demand they cut out the nighttime antics immediately. Angela accuses him of being a toxic party pooper who loves making everyone squirm on purpose. Joe defends his stance, saying confronting loud neighbors is totally reasonable behavior anywhere else. To him, deafening bedroom groans are no different than someone blasting heavy bass at 4 a.m. Angela literally begs him to hold his tongue and play nice for just one dinner. She quickly changes the subject to his clothes, complimenting his sudden upgrade in style. Joe grumbles that he wishes she would show him that kind of hype a bit more often. Angela immediately pivots back to her stress over having zero alcohol for their incoming guests. Joe blames his tiny folding bike journey for keeping his hands busy and missing her text messages. She frantically searches through their cabinets to find any decent bottle of booze left behind. Joe ridicules her for pulling out fancy bubbly for random acquaintances they barely even like. He insists the bad energy in the apartment makes hosting anyone right now an absolute train wreck. Angela screams about how much sweat and labor she put into baking her delicate French dish. She begs him to stop stressing her out before her high-stakes culinary masterpiece collapses. Joe drops a cold threat, telling her he will definitely bring up the nightly noises if she forces this dinner. Angela freezes in shock, realizing her husband is actively taking her hostage socially. Joe stands firm, giving her zero room to escape his confrontational ultimatum. Angela panics, arguing that calling them out will make every future run-in ridiculously awkward. She breaks down in frustration, admitting all she wanted was one normal, chill evening with company. Joe doubles down, insisting the upstairs couple knows how loud they are and is intentionally flexing. Angela and Joe are desperately trying to play the polite hosts, but the tension in the room is low-key reaching a boiling point. Pina starts admiring their home decor, trying to break the ice before things get even weirder. Angela gets hit with a sudden wave of unexplainable emotion, catching everyone totally off guard. Hawk drops an unbelievably deep breakdown on how energy can never be destroyed, setting a super surreal vibe. Out of nowhere, Pina presents a homemade dessert like it is a prized possession. Hawk jokes that this flan is so addictive they will literally be fiending for it like hardcore junkies. The awkward energy keeps rising as they debate whether the dessert needs to be chilled right away. Joe tries to lighten the mood with some silly banter over how to pronounce the dessert's name. Angela realizes she has not even served drinks yet and instantly spirals into hostess panic mode. To fix the mood, they decide to pull out a ridiculously expensive bottle saved for special occasions. This Chateau Haut Brion was a gift from Joe's dead uncle, so opening it is a massive flex. They keep hyping up this legendary vintage like it is going to magically save this awkward dinner. Joe questions if this chaotic night is actually worthy of popping such a rare wine. A petty fight breaks out between Angela and Joe over where the bottle was actually stored. Joe mutters a low-key embarrassing truth about how non-existent their social life really is. Joe completely fails at opening the bottle smoothly, breaking the cork right in front of their guests. Hawk tries to make a toast, only for Joe to deliver the most awkward update ever. Pina shifts the topic to their 12-year-old daughter Maggie, trying to keep the chat floating. Angela starts doom-spiraling about Maggie going to college 6 years early, giving pure main character melancholy. Joe feels totally erased when Angela acts like she will be completely stranded without her kid. Pina validates Angela's sudden tears, explaining that crying releases stress hormones. Angela opens up about how motherhood is her ultimate purpose, hitting a sensitive nerve. Angela casually assumes Pina does not want kids, which immediately shifts the vibe. Hawk steps in with a surprisingly bold warning about their biological clocks ticking away. Joe tries to clap back with a ridiculous flex about famous old guys becoming dads late in life. Hawk quickly pivots to give them a surprise gift to diffuse the rising hostility. He brings out fancy Spanish cured ham, thinking it is the ultimate host present. The host gift totally flops because Angela reveals she is strictly plant-based. Joe claims he is a total meat eater, making the couple look completely out of sync. It turns out their guests have an insane list of dietary restrictions too. Desperate to feed everyone, Joe offers a plain bowl of nuts. The entire food exchange devolves into pure comedic chaos. Hawk insists he will devour the ham himself, keeping the high-energy weirdness alive. Pina asks to step away, giving everyone a temporary breath from the high-tension room. Angela frantically offers to order takeout on an app so they do not starve. Hawk mentions how impressive it is that they threw this together so fast. They get caught up arguing over whether the invite happened today or yesterday, proving how cooked their sense of time is. Joe notes how all the days are bleeding together lately, adding a creeping sense of dread. Suddenly, Angela starts visibly shivering and losing her breath out of nowhere. Joe panics, thinking she is literally suffocating right in front of everyone. Pina walks back in and casually diagnoses Angela's freakout as early perimenopause. Pina drops straight-up brutal facts about how devastating hormonal shifts can be. She preaches about how society forces women to silently suffer through severe mental fog. Pina lists spousal resentment as a symptom, striking a deep, terrifying chord between Angela and Joe. Joe foolishly tries to deflect the heavy mood with a playful joke. Angela immediately claps back with a graphic hypothetical that instantly shuts Joe up. Joe tries to check Pina's credentials after getting totally humiliated. Pina casually flexes her wild professional background, stunning the room. Hawk wanders off and spots a piano setup tucked away in the corner. Joe acts like his musical past is completely buried and forgotten. Angela immediately exposes Joe's secret history as a former indie rocker. She reveals his band actually dropped a track that had a major moment back in the day. Pina asks if Angela was the muse behind Joe's famous single. Angela claims the title with proud main character energy. Joe downplays his old music scene like it is totally uncool now. When they ask to see him perform, Joe shuts it down, saying his glory days are long gone. Angela pushes back, pointing out that music is still Joe's whole career. Joe gets defensive over his specific title, proving how sensitive his ego is. Hawk abruptly stops the conversation when something on the floor catches his eye. He becomes utterly obsessed with a vintage rug laid out in the room. Angela exposes Joe's snobbish interior decor taste compared to her own aesthetic eye. Hawk recognizes the rug as a hyper-valuable Hirais piece and freaks out. Angela drops the bomb that she bought a luxury-level rug for absolute pennies. Hawk acts like she basically stumbled upon a priceless masterpiece by accident. Hawk gets so hyped up he literally jokes about stripping down to vibe on the carpet. The guests shower Angela with praise, low-key making Joe feel totally incompetent. Angela reveals Hawk's former flex-worthy career to the group. Joe gets totally skeptical, unable to believe this guy was a legendary fire captain. Joe takes shots at Hawk's appearance, claiming real firefighters look way tougher. Pina jokingly critiques her man's physique, adding to the unhinged banter. Hawk explains how he traded the physical grind of firefighting for higher executive roles. Joe tries to mock Hawk's new career path, mispronouncing his specialty. Hawk corrects him, explaining his new passion for deep alternative body healing. Hawk offers Joe a session on his massage table, radiating chaotic friendly energy. Unable to handle any more of this insane dinner party, Joe checks out and decides to get high. Joe tries to retreat to his office, but Hawk immediately tags along to disrupt his escape. Angela tries to keep up appearances while her husband low-key abandons the dinner guests. Angela rallies Pina to start a full house tour, leaving the boys alone to face their own weird dynamic. Angela is leading the apartment tour like she is trying to prove she has her whole life together. Hawk glides into her messy art workspace and immediately validates her, calling the chaos pure genius. Angela flexes how she did all the bathroom tile work herself as a form of Zen meditation. She starts bragging about saving the original ceramic tile, totally seeking Hawk's approval. Her whole aesthetic flex is renovating everything without actually changing the original soul of the place. Hawk gushes over her taste, calling the bathroom an immaculately preserved masterwork. Meanwhile, back in the dining room, Pina low-key spots that Angela served prosciutto instead of actual jamon. Joe warns Pina not to call it out, joking Angela would literally lose her mind over the mistake. When offered a hit of the joint, Hawk admits he has to be super careful with weed. He reveals that if he gets too high, his brain glitches and he starts counting every single object in sight. Joe picks up a random wooden stick, realizing it is actually a mallet for a xylophone. He explains how their massive place was created when two separate apartments were knocked together. Joe points to the thick structural divider, making a goofy joke about how walls work. They step into Maggie's bedroom where Angela shows off the intricate stencils she painted. Hawk notices a stunning black and white art photo on the wall, and Angela bashfully confesses she took it. She reveals she went to art school years ago before completely abandoning her creative dreams. Hawk hypes her up big time, telling her that her raw talent is exploding all over the apartment. When Hawk tries to peek into the master bedroom, Angela quickly shuts it down and locks the vibe down. Back with the group, Pina mentions Hawk's heroic background as an active-duty firefighter. She casually reveals they have only been dating for under a single year, surprising Joe. Pina drops a casual lore bomb, mentioning she was actually married to someone else entirely before this. The wild twist is that Hawk was originally her patient while she was working as a physical therapist. Pina then leaks Joe's massive secret: this ultra-expensive apartment actually belonged to his parents. She explains Joe literally grew up in these exact rooms, exposing his major imposter syndrome. Angela admits Joe hates people knowing because they could never afford a multi-million-dollar home on their own. Pina tells her there is zero shame in inheriting privilege, advising her to just lean in and own it. Angela takes the bait and starts opening up about a deep personal crisis she is facing. Pina breaks down how her past marriage died. First the intimacy vanished, then the talking stopped entirely. She tells Angela never to settle for relationship crumbs, saying she would literally rather die. Pina presents a dreamy romantic hypothetical about running away to a Copenhagen cafe with a mysterious lover. Angela feels like Pina just unlocked her darkest secret desires, staring at her in absolute awe. Meanwhile, the guys are bonding, but Joe can't help low-key mocking Hawk's intense, ridiculous name. The girls roast him about it, joking, imagine introducing a guy named Pigeon as your romantic partner. They crack up hysterically, escalating the bird jokes to Pelican while sipping their drinks. Hawk then drops a harrowing story about saving a dog in a burning building only to grab an empty oxygen tank. He describes how inhaling toxic smoke destroyed his throat and forced him into early retirement. He pivoted from fighting dangerous fires straight into buying and selling luxury artisanal rugs. Angela instantly relates, bonding over their shared obsessive passion for collecting beautiful textiles. The energy gets super loose when someone calls for tequila shots to keep the party hype. With weed and alcohol mixing, the vibe transitions into pure chaotic main character energy. Hawk pulls up his sleeve to flex his old-school ink, showing off artistic tattoos on his arms. He shows a matching tattoo featuring two stylized birds symbolizing his codependent bond with Pina. He inspecting the old single-pane window glass, warning Joe it could shatter instantly under mild thermal shock. Joe snarkily claps back that their apartment is emotionally and physically freezing anyway. Pina begs Joe to play one of his vintage vinyl records, wanting to hear his musical taste. Joe tries to duck out of the room awkwardly, claiming he needs to go check on his wife. Hawk mentions how cold the other neighbors are in the elevator, making zero eye contact. Hawk proves how clueless he is about music when he asks Joe to define what sod even is. Joe instantly loses his mind at Hawk's ignorance, schooling him that sod is definitely not jazz. Hawk starts digging through Joe's personal record stash and pulls out an ultra-rare vinyl album. Hawk realizes the record is literally the exact track Joe wrote for Angela during their early days. Joe visibly panics, fiercely commanding Hawk not to put that private record on the turntable. He violently slams the mood down, declaring that music time is completely cancelled. To save the awkward silence, Pina rolls out her homemade dessert, hyping up her legendary flan. Angela takes one bite and loses her absolute mind, comparing the insane texture to literal crack. Angela tries to pivot the conversation back to the awkward elephant in the room. Pina keeps stuffing everyone with sweet dessert, interrupting Angela's attempt to make her speech. Hawk pours out another round of tequila shots, calling for a dramatic group toast. Angela finally gets the floor and attempts to formally apologize for all the loud renovation noise. Hawk cuts her off, dropping a bomb that he and Pina actually have something major to confess. A tense standoff begins over who gets to air out their neighbor grievances first. Pina takes the mic and starts admitting that they might have been disturbing Joe and Angela. She specifies that these massive disruptions happen specifically during the middle of the night. She straight up confesses to the entire table that their late-night sex sessions are brutally loud. Hawk casually backs her up, explaining how it is completely impossible for them to control their raw passion. They apologize profusely, promising to be much more respectful and quieter moving forward. Angela is mortified beyond belief and instantly starts gaslighting them, insisting they never heard a single sound. She desperately claims Joe sleeps like a heavy log and that nothing ever leaks through the walls. Hawk stops the cap cold, looking directly into Joe's eyes and telling him to stop lying. He presses Joe heavily, begging him to just be a man and finally speak the real truth. Joe sticks to his lie, digging his heels in and insisting he has zero clue what they are talking about. Hawk calls out the toxic tension, stating plain as day that the noise has been driving Joe insane. Joe snaps and insults their intimate life, mockingly telling them their sex isn't half as explosive as they think. Pina drops the ultimate hammer, reminding Joe that he literally walked over to their front door at midnight. She exposes his lie in front of everyone, recalling how he was aggressively pounding on their door in a rage. Pina drops an absolute bombshell, claiming they caught Joe red-handed on their hidden door camera. Joe tries to gaslight them, swearing ring peepholes aren't even a real thing, but Pina ain't playing games. She pulls out her phone to show him the crisp footage, proving tech has officially left Joe in the dust. The app literally flagged Joe's late-night visit as a high-level security threat, low-key treating him like an intruder. Joe tries to claim the footage is blurry, but Pina hits him with facts. It's full high-definition crystal clear. Seeing himself on camera banging on their door leaves Joe completely stunned and cooked. Pina sarcastically praises him for pausing before going absolute rage mode on their apartment door. Hawk tries to make light of the situation, but the tension in the room is rising fast. Cornered by the footage, Joe completely breaks character and screams out his real frustration. He demands to know why they are making so much noise every single night like it's an Olympic sport. Angela instantly jumps in to tone police her husband before things get completely out of hand. Joe exposes the real damage, revealing his innocent little kid is hearing everything through the ceiling. He's been forced to construct wild lies just to cover up their wild bedroom activities. Joe admits his daughter isn't buying his cover stories anymore, making him look like a total liar. The couple's daily life has completely devolved into discussing their upstairs neighbor's intimate sounds. Angela hilariously flips the script, admitting she actually loves hearing Pina's intense climaxing noises. Pina is totally flattered by Angela's shameless compliment, taking it as a badge of honor. Joe drops a super specific nickname, asking who is making those crazy animalistic growling noises. Hawk casually drops a mystery name that leaves Joe and Angela completely confused. Then Hawk mentions another random guy, leaving the couple wondering who else is up there. The upstairs couple acts like bringing random strangers into their bed is just another Tuesday. Joe starts panicking, wondering if this whole thing is just a cruel joke designed to break his brain. He accuses them of plotting against him in another language right in front of his face. Pina finally comes clean, admitting their quiet home life has spiraled completely out of control. Angela pushes for details, still hoping they just mean intense board game nights or casual wine hangouts. Pina drops the ultimate truth bomb without breaking a single sweat, stunning the room into dead silence. Joe spells it out word for word just to process the sheer madness of what he just heard. Pina dryly confirms that yes, a sex party means exactly what everyone thinks it means. Angela rapidly pivots into main character diplomat mode, trying to act like a progressive, cool neighbor. To break the awkward tension, Angela uses smoking a joint as an excuse to pull Joe into the office. Once they step away, Angela completely loses her mind with excitement over this spicy gossip. She feels totally validated because she knew all along those wild sounds weren't just standard couple stuff. Joe is low-key blown away that his wildest theories about the neighbors were actually 100% true. The sheer absurdity of the news makes Angela want to lean into the chaos even further. Back in the living room, Joe demands they spill every single dirty detail about their secret lifestyle. Pina is totally open book status, ready to overshare without a single shred of shame. They explain this wild lifestyle change only started recently, catching everyone off guard. Hawk reveals they had so many guests that their bedroom literally ran out of physical space. Suddenly, the crazy echo blasting into Joe's apartment makes total scientific sense. Angela connects the dots on why Pina was so obsessed with buying super thick rugs earlier. Joe tries to wrap his brain around how a giant group hookup doesn't degenerate into total chaos. Pina lays down their golden rule, emphasizing that absolute enthusiasm is mandatory before anything happens. Their philosophy on group intimacy sounds more like a spiritual retreat than a wild night out. Hawk explains that patience is key because everyone moves at their own comfortable speed. Pina drops another personal detail about how her journey into this lifestyle originally started. They bash modern dating apps, claiming online hookup culture feels way too fake and transactional. Pina insists on meeting people face-to-face to build genuine vibe alignment. They reveal there are actual massive group conventions dedicated entirely to hosting these wild events. Pina explains guests literally get a detailed preference checklist before anything gets started. Joe instantly compares their organized kink checklist to his favorite high-drama reality TV show. Hawk claims the best part of group intimacy is actually how transparent everyone has to be. Joe's deep insecurities kick in as he imagines being picked dead last like high school gym class. Hawk reassures Joe that nobody ever gets left out in the cold in their inclusive group. Pina drops a whole new vocabulary word, explaining how they overcome basic human jealousy. Their level of emotional maturity sounds almost alien to a strictly monogamous guy like Joe. Pina admits she gets top-tier satisfaction from seeing her husband fully enjoyed by someone else. Hawk recalls their biggest event yet, which was a massive celebration hosted for their friend. Joe and Angela's jaws drop to the floor when they hear how many people participated at once. The fact that they booked a fancy coastal getaway just for a mega orgy is mind-blowing. Pina describes the aftermath of the retreat like she unlocked some secret leveling up energy. Angela assumes Vanessa must be some ultra-young socialite leading this intense lifestyle. Pina quickly corrects her, hinting that Vanessa is actually way older and far more experienced. Hawk reveals Vanessa is basically a master sensei who taught them advanced intimacy techniques. Hawk drops an insanely private detail that causes Joe and Angela to visibly cringe. Angela tries to keep her cool with an awkward joke while dying of secondhand embarrassment inside. Pina reveals Hawk actually prefers being on the receiving end, completely opening up his secrets. Hawk tries to sound deep and philosophical about his personal bedroom preferences. Joe can't help but crack a hilarious jab about where Hawk's spiritual journey actually lands. Pina keeps defending the extreme options available on their event preference sheet. Joe sums up Hawk's crazy contrast in the most brutally honest way possible. Joe admits that learning the truth behind the ceiling noise actually clears away his initial rage. Pina gets super emotional, thanking them for not judging their extreme non-traditional lifestyle. Hawk compliments Joe and Angela, pointing out their hilarious married couple banter. Hawk tries to give Angela props, but accidentally opens up a brand new can of worms. Hawk brings up a mysterious detail that makes Joe's jaw drop into full panic mode. Hawk casually drops that Angela intentionally parades around naked in front of her window for him. Joe's temporary peace instantly evaporates as severe betrayal trauma sets in real fast. Angela confesses that after Hawk spotted her once, she started doing it on purpose for validation. Joe is completely horrified that his own wife had a secret exhibitionist game with the neighbor. Angela turns the fight back onto Joe, dropping a heartbreaking reality check about their dying romantic spark. Joe is out here completely blowing a fuse over Angela refusing to put up curtains on their windows. He explicitly asks Pina to do that specific signature move that always makes her scream with pleasure. Pina orders him to strip off his clothes as the sad music pumps through the apartment. Joe tries to slow things down so he can savor every single microsecond of this encounter. Suddenly, a terrifying cracking sound echoes as Joe collapses in sheer agony. Pina starts screaming for help as Joe writhes around on the rug holding his lower spine. Joe panics and screams at everyone to back off because his chronic back issue just imploded. He acts like a total infant on the floor begging for his special posture support pillows. Hawk rushes into the room acting like an emergency combat medic trying to stabilize him. Joe warns Hawk not to attempt any crazy holistic bodywork techniques on his broken spine. Hawk completely ignores the warning and violently cracks Joe's back with brute force. Joe screams bloody murder and confirms that the spinal pop made the excruciating pain 10 times worse. Angela bursts in and completely explodes in anger because his bad back just ruined their wild night. Joe fires right back, sarcastically apologizing for his medical disability interfering with her dream orgy. Joe is spiraling so hard right now because his back pain is making him completely miserable. But Hawk jumps in and claims his severe back spasms are not even a physical issue. According to Hawk, Joe is literally holding in a lifetime of unexpressed rage. Joe is not buying it and reminds Hawk they were literally just dancing seconds ago. Joe screams at Hawk to stop trying to bond emotionally with him in his underpants. Hawk tries playing the wise guru card, claiming he has been in this exact emotional pain. That is when Joe decides to completely destroy Hawk's spiritual main character energy. Joe aggressively demands to know what government name is written on Hawk's driver's license. Hawk completely breaks character and admits his real name is actually Howard. Angela starts laughing out loud because finding out he is just how he completely ruins his whole aura. Howard sheepishly confesses that Hawk is literally just a cool nickname he chose for himself. Joe roasts him mercilessly, calling it the absolute lamest thing he has ever heard. But Howard then drops a super heavy truth bomb about why he actually changed his life. The entire room goes dead silent when he explains his late wife passed away from cancer. Howard confesses he was acting reckless and borderline suicidal on the job after losing her. He had a moment where his entire marriage flashed right in front of his eyes. He realized he was way too insecure to accept his wife's adventurous romantic fantasies. His toxic judgment made her completely shut down before she eventually passed away. Pena told him he had to completely transform his identity or burn out for real. So Howard literally shed his old self to become this open-minded hawk persona. Even after that intense trauma dump, Joe cannot resist dropping a wildly out-of-pocket joke. Joe sarcastically claims the lesson is that Howard finally found a woman who would peg him. Angela is completely disgusted that Joe would mock someone's dead wife trauma. Pena snaps and screams at Joe for being insanely disrespectful to her boyfriend. But when Howard tries to correct Pena's English, her rage shifts straight onto him. Pena slams Howard's terrible Spanish skills and says he never actually listens to her. She accuses Howard of constantly pushing boundaries because he refuses to pay attention. She repeatedly screams at Howard to shut up in front of everyone. Howard gets totally submissive and promises he will never interrupt her ever again. Joe steps in and admits that both of their couples are completely cooked. He jokes that they are so dead inside they couldn't even pull off a simple swinger night. Pena asks how Joe and Angela can even sleep together when they hate each other so much. She drops the ultimate question, asking when they last had any real intimacy. Both Joe and Angela drop the bomb simultaneously that it has been a whole year. Pena suddenly realizes why this couple came off so incredibly bizarre all night. Joe immediately blames Angela, shouting that she constantly rejects him. Angela fires back that Joe completely stopped trying and acts totally unappealing. Joe claims he stopped initiating sex because getting shot down was humiliating. He yells that as his wife, she is supposed to naturally want to be with him. Angela drops the coldest roast of the movie, asking Joe if he would even fuck himself. Joe bitterly responds that he has no choice because nobody else is doing it. Pena pushes them to remember if they were ever genuinely happy together. Angela reminisces about meeting Joe at a dive bar while he played in his cool band. She reveals she literally ran 11 blocks through the city just to catch up with him. She remembers how they used to have incredible chemistry and be absolute best friends. But then she calls him out for choosing to turn into a bitter hater. Joe finally snaps and confesses his deepest, most heartbreaking vulnerability. He feels like a massive failure living in his parents' place teaching kids oboe. Joe begs her to just let him exist in his failure without constantly fighting it. Angela argues he has a beautiful life and a daughter who worships him, but he just gave up. She slams him for forcing the entire family to walk on eggshells around his sadness. Joe retorts that Angela just buys home decor and tries to control his whole life. Pena interrupts and points out the insane level of toxic resentment between them. She asks if they really want their daughter growing up in this constant anxiety. Pena drops the ultimate truth bomb, declaring that their marriage is officially dead. Howard awkwardly admits they really just wanted to see the apartment and hang out. The swinger couple packs up their casserole dish and prepares to make a quick exit. Joe cleans the dish at the sink in pure awkward silence as the guests bounce. Angela brings up their upcoming trip, but both know their future is totally uncertain. Before turning off the lights, Angela quietly asks how his back pain is feeling. Miraculously, after letting out all that pent-up rage, Joe's back pain is totally gone. Angela heads off to bed, completely drained from the raw emotional chaos. Joe accepts the reality of their broken marriage and decides to sleep in the office. In the middle of the night, Joe walks into the quiet living room toward his neglected piano. He hesitantly touches the keys, playing a few quiet notes in the dark apartment. Slowly, the melody picks up as Joe low-key reconnects with his genuine love for music. Playing with real soul, he finally lets go of all the inner bitterness holding him back. The song fades out, leaving their marriage in pieces but giving Joe a fresh start. Joe takes a deep breath, finally ready to face whatever comes next in his life. Talk about an emotional roller coaster that hit us right in the feelings. If you loved this intense movie breakdown, smash that like button right now. Make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily recaps. Drop a comment down below letting me know what movie you want me to explain next. Thanks for watching, stay awesome, and I will catch you legends in the next video.